Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you are watching this video, let me welcome you all to our channel Future Endeavors. In the previous class, we have started a new chapter on force, and regarding the chapter is also regarding the laws of motions. So we will be continuing from the previous class. In the previous class, we have discussed about what is force, what is impacts, and the kinds of force that we see or observe in nature. Today we are going to mainly discuss about the other ways in which we can classify the forces around us is contact and non-contact force. Okay. So as you have seen that force is if you have remembered that force is exactly what is force? It can be regarded as a cause for change in the state of any object. Okay, so that force, when we are considering the force, it can be classified into two broader categories. Okay, so what are those two broader categories? One is contact force, okay, and the other one is non-contact force. Okay, contact force and non-contact force. See, what is contact force? Some forces are there which does not come into existence until and unless two bodies or two surfaces get in contact with each other. Those kind of forces are called contact forces. So if you want to just have it in your written down in the notebook, you can just I am just repeating it once again. Contact forces are those forces which come into existence or which can be felt only when two objects or two surfaces are in contact with each other. That is called contact force. Whereas there are some kinds of other forces which do not require any contact between two objects or two surfaces. They can exist even when the two objects are at a certain distance. These kinds of forces are called non-contact forces. So I am just again repeating it once again. Non-contact forces are those which do not require two objects to come into contact with each other for their existence. So these kind of forces are called non-contact forces. Now coming to the details of these two forces, we will be just first of all discussing what are the contact forces, then we will move on to non-contact forces. Okay. So if we consider what are the types of contact forces. Okay, so contact forces, I think is clear, which are applied on bodies by making a physical contact. Okay, actually contact force, for a contact force to exist, okay, for a contact force to exist, there must be a physical contact between the two bodies. Okay, so this is an important keyword. There must be a physical contact between the two bodies. Only then this kind of force comes into play. Physical contact between two bodies. Okay, fine. Now what are the kinds of the contact forces? What are the kinds of contact forces? So first kind of contact force that comes into our mind is very common, very you can easily find it around yourselves. Okay, so the first kind of force is frictional force. So first kind of contact force is frictional force. Okay, frictional force. Okay, fine, frictional force. Okay, now what is this frictional force? Now see, whenever you try to move certain object over the surface of another, there comes an opposition. Okay, whenever an object tries to move over the surface of another object, a opposition comes into play. You see, a box is lying on the ground and you try to pull it. When you apply very small amount of force, it seems that something is resisting that movement, the motion of that box. Okay, you are wanting to displace the box from one position to another position, but something is there that is actually opposing the change of position of that object, or simply it is opposing the motion of that object. So this kind of forces is regarded as frictional force. It is very common, it exists all around us, frictional force. So frictional forces are actually very, you must be thinking that frictional forces are very much disadvantageous to us, but no, frictional forces not in general you can see that frictional forces are actually opposing the motion of objects, so it might be looking that it is disadvantageous, but in some cases frictional force is also advantageous. For example, just think of the fact that if there were no frictional force, then the brakes of the vehicles would not have worked. Suppose just you imagine you are riding a bicycle and you are moving at a certain speed, and suddenly something comes in front of you and you need to stop instantly or stop within a certain instant of time. What you need to do, you need to apply your brakes, and the brakes work on the principle of friction. The brake pads that are present on the rim of the wheel of the bicycle gets pressed against the rim, and the friction, due to the friction, the rim of the friction acting on the rim of the bicycle wheel causes the bicycle to slowly stop down. Okay, so this is a very important application of friction. So it is not like that friction is always disadvantageous to us. It is not like that. Friction also is very important. So this is frictional force, which is one of the kinds of contact force. Okay, the second kind of contact force that comes into play is the normal reaction force. So what is normal reaction force? See, in case you have kept an object on the table, okay, what happens? You have kept an object on the table. Now you all know, as we have discussed in the previous class, gravitational force exists everywhere. So whenever you have kept an object on the table, the earth, what it is trying? It is trying to pull that object towards its center, isn't it? But the object is not moving down, the object is not falling down, it is at rest on the table. So you know, in the previous slide we have discussed that when you apply a force on a certain object, it causes a change in the state. So gravitational force is acting on that object, but still there is no change in the state of rest of that object. So what actually is responsible for its such behavior? It is the normal reaction force. Okay, so normal reaction force, I am just giving a diagrammatic explanation. So this is, say, the table surface, okay, and on the table surface an object has been kept. It has a certain mass, so definitely it is getting pulled by the earth's center. Okay, the earth would have pulled it towards the center, but due to the presence of the normal reaction force, it cannot move. What happens? The table actually exerts a force in a perpendicular direction to the surface of the object. Okay, like this. The force acts like this. Okay, now this force, why it is called normal reaction? Because this force always acts whenever two surfaces come in contact, and it is always acting perpendicular to those surfaces. If, say, the surfaces are like this, okay, say this is a slanted table, and on it an object has been kept like this. Okay, an object has been kept like this. It is being held over this surface by, say, another force. We are applying a force by our hand and are holding the object like this. Okay, now in this case again the normal reaction comes into play, but it will be acting in this direction, because normal reaction always acts perpendicular to the surface. Okay, so normal reaction force comes into play whenever two surfaces are in contact, and remember, the force always acts perpendicular to the surface. So this is normal reaction force. Okay, now the next kind of force that we are going to talk about is the tension force. Okay, so third force that comes into that is a category of the contact force is the tension force. So the third category is tension force. What is tension force? This is not the tension that comes to your mind when you have an exam nearing. Okay, this is not that tension. Actually, see what happens when you hang a certain object by a string from your ceiling. What happens? Say this is a ceiling, okay, and you have with a string, help of a string, attached a metallic ball at the end of the string, and it is hanging. Okay, what happens? Obviously the metal ball has a certain mass and it is being attracted by the earth's center. so it must have moved towards the center of the earth, but it is not moving. Why? This is because here obviously normal reaction force is not acting, but another force acts along the string, okay, along the string in the upward direction, and this is the tension force denoted by letter T. This force actually holds the object and prevents it from falling down. So tension force is something which acts along objects and along objects like string or say any rope, any chain, okay, and or you can also observe this kind of tension forces in spring also, okay. So in that kind of spring we regard it as spring force, but it is almost the same thing. So this is the tension force that is acting through the string or through rope or through any chain, okay. So this is the tension force, okay. Now we have another two kinds of contact forces, but we will be ending our lecture here. We will be continuing with our lecture in the next class, okay. We will be discussing this other kind of contact forces, okay. So please till then study well, take care. If you have any query, please do mention in the comment box. Thank you.